Hello and welcome to Bold Women Lawyers Spotlight Interview. We have a great guest with us today. I'm so excited to introduce you to attorney Elsa W. Smith. She's amazing, as you will hear, but let me tell you a little bit about her before we get started. She is the founder and principal of the law offices of Elsa W. Smith. She focuses on wills and estate planning. She counsels individuals, families, and business owners in the creation of wills, trusts, powers of attorney, and advance directives. Now, you wouldn't believe it looking at her, but she has over 20 years experience as an attorney. She is a native Spanish speaker. She is of Afro-Cuban descent. She is a proud minority and woman-owned business owner. Elsa also, she has so much spare time. She also hosts a weekly educational live show called Women Winning Wednesdays with attorney Elsa W. Smith. You can find that on Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. And her passion, which is what I really love about talking to her today, is empowering women through estate planning. So Elsa, welcome. I'm really happy to have you here today.
Sharon, thank you so much for asking me to be a guest on your show, and it's an honor to be here. Thank you.
Well, now, you and I actually met online at an online networking platform. And as I said, what really caught my attention when you introduced yourself and you talked about empowering women through estate planning. And that totally caught my attention for two reasons. One, I thought that's a powerful message to send to women. And then on the business side, I thought, ooh, and that's a great marketing message. So I really wanted to have you come on so we can talk more about what you're doing in the trust and estate world, and how you came, through your journey to get to this point. Because I know you didn't take a straight line from law school to your trust and estate planning practice. So tell us a little bit about that journey.
Yeah, it was a long one. And I guess if you had to plot it on a chart, you'd have all these zigzags going up and down. So just to give a quick background, I went to the University of Maryland, University of Miami, law school in Coral Gables, Florida. I went to undergrad as a business school student, went straight into law school. After law school, I remained in South Florida and did a number of things. I did a lot of criminal work, criminal appellate work. I also did a stint with a construction litigation firm. So I did a number of things, really trying to find my way, and for me, looking back, it was more like, okay, what do I don't want to do? And I was Xing that out. I'm like, okay, that's not a good fit. I did insurance defense for a while, and that wasn't a good fit for a number of reasons. But a lot of it, it was me discovering really who I am and the lawyer that I wanted to become. And in that particular experience, it taught me that I need to be connected to the people I'm serving. I can't represent, at least it doesn't feel good to me. This is my experience. It doesn't feel good to me if I'm not sitting across the table or even on a virtual platform, talking with my clients, understanding their needs, their wants, their hopes, their aspirations. That's important to me. So, that was, again, part of the discovery. So, I also served in the Broward County Support Enforcement Division. It was getting people to pay their child support.
Wow.
This was back when that the office is no longer in existence, but in Broward County in Florida, there was such an office before it all became part of the state. But I did that for a while too. And fast forward. So how did I come to Maryland? Well, it's rather a romantic reason. I did it for love. I met my husband while on vacation in Maryland after I guess, almost 2 years of being in the support enforcement division of that Broward office, and things aligned, and I said yes and decided to just uproot myself. And I don't want to blow past that because, I created a network in Florida. I was, the head of a very prominent minority bar association, at a time in Palm Beach County, and a number of things. And I developed just wonderful relationships. So I said to myself, okay, I'm going to uproot. Don't you love the motion sensors?
Yeah, I do.
I love that.
Stuff happens. You can't control it. So, okay. That's fine. That's what I love about Zoom. Yeah.
Yeah, and I love about going live. It's that you just got to roll with it.
You roll with it, right.
And that has been. It's funny enough that I mentioned that. That's kind of been my life. I've had to pivot. I've got to roll with it and not let anything faze me. So, going back to my journey, I uprooted, moved to Maryland, and then I started. I waved into DC. Because I practiced, so many years, I was able to do that. So I started doing contract work, e-discovery work in the District of Columbia. And I was privileged enough to work for some really amazing, like really, white shoe law firms on K Street. And, it definitely, it paid the bills. Beefed up my retirement savings, which was great, and which really helped, particularly as we all weathered, 2008, and all of that, and when everybody was like cringing and not looking at savings accounts and all that, and lawyers left and right were losing their jobs. I was blessed to weather that storm, and I happened to be working on a number of matters, but one in particular that like carried me through 2008 was for a prominent firm in DC, and dealing with big pharma issues, and I'll leave it at that. So that, but then it got to the point where I said, okay, it's paying the bills, and that's great, but there was still a part of me that wasn't satisfied. And it was that need to not only be actively involved in the legal community, but also serving. Ever since I was a child, I always had this like heart of service. And that's what I saw modeled by the people around me. So I'm like, I need to get back to that, because that part of Elsa is not being satisfied. Again, I hardly knew anyone. I was recreating myself, much like, and you mentioned earlier on in my intro that I'm Afro-Cuban. Now, just insert the fact that my parents fled Cuba's communism when Castro came to power. So they came to the States having to recreate themselves, barely knowing the language. So that whole recreation and starting again, that's in my DNA.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Let me ask you a question, because I think you made a very important point. Because I hear this, when I talk to lawyers that are thinking about going out on their own, you had a realistic view of it. As you said, like, I have to recreate myself. I have to recreate my network. I think that's something that a lot of lawyers tend to skip over. They think, I have the knowledge, I'll just go open my own practice, without thinking through, but how am I going to do that? So tell us a little bit about how you did sort of recreate yourself, and what things did you start doing, because you had to build a network from scratch, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Even though I had a few family members in the area, but in terms of people in the legal community, I was starting from ground zero as far as I was concerned. So, I joined bar associations. I got involved, and now some people might say, well, Elsa, you're a social butterfly. I am. I make no bones about it. You put me in a room with 500 people that I don't know, and I will make my way, through. I will make my way through the room, and just connecting and, all the good stuff, because that's just how I'm wired. But it takes time, and in terms of getting comfortable enough with people so that they're referring cases to you, that takes time. It's that know, like, and trust factor.
Absolutely.
So you need to be visible. You need to not be afraid and get out of your own way. If you're shy, guess what? Buck up. You're gonna, if you want people to know who you are,
get over it.
You've got to step out way outside your comfort zone.
Exactly. So you were not only building a network from scratch, you were building a whole new practice.
Indeed, because when I finally decided to stop doing the e-discovery work I was doing and said, okay, well, I'm going to leave this firm and go out on my own. That was, and I started, Elsa, and by this time I was married, so I was no longer Elsa Waite, which was my former name. I was now Elsa Smith. And I started the firm in like a Q4 of 2012. And I was doing what I knew for a long time, and that was criminal defense work. So I was on, taking panel cases, working with the Office of the Public Defender. And it was great. Got exposed really quickly to judges, attorneys, and I was in my element, which is fine. But then the longer I did it, again, it's like you're constantly evolving. And the conversations I was having with self, it's like, Elsa, what is your next chapter going to look like? You're here, you're developing this network. What's next for you? So did a lot of introspection and really was asking myself, like, what makes me happy? What brings me joy? Not just what brings in a paycheck, but what brings me joy.
Right.
And what brings me joy is, actually helping people, specifically helping women. And I'll tell you a little more about that, because that's kind of how I got into, estate planning. And you tell me if I can go ahead and dovetail into that.
Yes, I'd love for you to tell that part of the story.
Absolutely. So I got to a point where I wanted to do something new, and but yet serving the public. And I again did a lot of introspection and said, well, what brings me joy? And I remember that shortly after I got married, my husband and we created our estate plans. Mm-hmm. And I remember, first of all, it's like, gee, now I feel like a grown up. I have a portfolio, I have an estate plan.
Yeah.
And at the time, it didn't hit me that was something that I could, harness that feeling, that energy that came from that experience into a practice. I didn't put the two together. It wasn't until, I got to the point where I was feeling drained and I wanted a different quality of life. So I was looking for something new. And through webinars, seminars, and stuff, estate planning kept coming up, and people were like, listen, when you're doing something else, let us know. And this was it. And then I'm like, okay, great. So started taking continuing legal education courses, talking to people that were in the estate planning world. And I became even more interested. I'm like, okay, well, how do I distinguish myself from everybody else that's doing estate planning?
Yeah.
Yes, I'm in Maryland. Yeah. But here's the thing, Sharon, the ABA has already, published a while ago that less than 5% of the attorneys in the States are people of color. Okay. And now, can you imagine in the estates and trust area?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, think about that.
Yeah.
So,
Good point. Good point.
and aside from that, I'm a native Spanish speaker, you know, and quite frankly, since I've moved to Maryland, there've been, you know, just a few people that I've encountered that are either native Spanish speakers or that they're fluent and they're practicing and use that in their practice.
Mhm.
So, you know, my husband was telling me for years, you know, you speak Spanish, you've got to use this.
Right.
You got to
Use it. Exactly.
So I did. And, you know, I stopped, you know, just because, you know, there's not like a huge Cuban community there's a light again. I love this stuff. I'm gonna on the replay. I'm really gonna enjoy going back and looking at that. But you know, again, things that distinguish me from
Right.
you know from other people. So yeah, I capitalized on that, and early on, again, trying to find my way really as I'm getting even more focused. I said, okay, well, I obviously I enjoy estate planning. I enjoy what it can do. I enjoy what it did for me, and I want to recreate that for other people.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, that was yet another piece to it. Around the same time that I was going through this you know inquiry, I was working with a business coach at the time, and I had just moved to this office where I'm speaking to you now from in Annapolis, and she said, "You've got to get plugged in to you know with folks in Annapolis and maybe women's groups." So I happened to get connected, and I won't go into all that because that's like another, you know, it's another half hour. But suffice it to say that I joined the American Business Women's Association, and right now I'm the vice president of the Maryland Capital chapter.
Wow.
So I jumped in, like I've been involved like since, you know, April of 2018, and I jumped in with like both feet. It's like, yeah, let's rock. And here I am. But that was a way of getting, you know, getting plugged in. And the reason I bring that up and how it ties to what I'm ultimately doing now, it's that empowerment piece. I realize that what really brings me joy, it's not just serving women in particular. Why women? Because particularly when it comes to estate planning, women have really, you know, abdicated their responsibilities. They've delegated managing their finances, you know, managing their estate plans to the other, you know, in their life, whether it's a parent or whether it's a spouse. And, you know, a lot of us, you know, hey, I'm 52, and it was just the way things were. My parents are very, you know, it's a very old school, not progressive, you know, at all, but whatever. The fact is that this has been going on for a while, and it has left women, even professional women like you and me, you know, at a disadvantage. I mean, you know, you've heard of like women who sadly, you know, they lose a spouse and they don't know how to balance a checkbook. Not that we're even using checkbooks nowadays. For the younger set, you don't know what a checkbook is.
Right.
It's a ledger.
I take your point. Exactly. They don't even know, where do I find the financial information? I have no idea where it is. Yes. And that still does happen. And I think with some sad regularity. Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then even more focused, and this is just, you know, very personal. There were, you know, Black women of color who were not being spoken to. And what I mean is, you know, marketed to. All the marketing that we ever see in estate planning, at least for that we've seen rather, you know, for a number of years, has been, quite frankly, older white males. And it just is what it is. And with marketing, if I can't see myself in it, I don't think you're talking to me. I don't think that estate planning is for me. Right. So again, not only do we have a dearth of, you know, estate and trust attorneys of color practicing, but the marketing piece is just sorely lacking.
And it even comes down to the name, estate. And a lot of people say, well, I don't have an estate, so that's not for me. And then, as you said, the name doesn't resonate. And then they're looking at older white males, right? So that's not resonating. So you just think, that's not for me. And you move on, when in fact, it's very much for you and for your own protection. But people don't realize that. So,
and one of the things that I have to do over and over again is to just bust that myth that, estate planning is not for you, because everyone has an estate. Everyone has stuff. You have a car, a bank account, a home, whatever. You have an estate. So again, it's beating that drum. And I do that through the shows, the webinars, all the teaching that I do, because eventually, after you plant those seeds, they start to germinate and people get it. And like, it's like Attorney Smith said, I actually do have an estate and I've got to protect it.
Exactly. And you said something else really important a little while ago. When you're talking about being Spanish, a Spanish speaker, and that's a way to differentiate yourself. And sometimes I find, particularly with women lawyers, they really shy away from the whole differentiation thing. And you need to do just the opposite. That's a huge bonus for you for marketing. I was a nurse before I became a lawyer. But I never thought about it until one of my mentors, law mentors, actually, she taught me an awful lot, who was also a nurse lawyer, said to me one day, I market the heck out of that nurse attorney connection. Why aren't you doing it? And the light bulb finally went off. I'm like, yeah, why am I not doing that? So it's the same thing. You are so far ahead of so many other lawyers, male or female, because you're Spanish speaking. So absolutely, you market your differentiators. No question.
Sharon, as a profession, we are groomed to fit into the mold. Our profession it's still very traditional, very conservative. You blend in. If anything, you're counseled not to stand out because we do things the way we've done it for 150 years.
Correct.
So this thinking that you have to break out of the mold, break out of that shell, is fairly new, but you're right. Those who are going to, I believe, who are going to survive need to find what differentiates you from everyone else doing the work that you're doing.
Yeah, no question, because, there's 1.3 million lawyers out there. There's a lot of lawyers, and something like 75% are in private practice. So there's a lot of competition out there. And you do have to find your differentiator, not just as a differentiator for marketing, but also for yourself in terms of, who do I want as a client? So I want to differentiate myself and be attractive to those people. So, but good for you. Good for you for recognizing that. Yeah.
One thing I want to say, though, that even if you're in a field, in a specialty where, there's a whole bunch of people doing the same thing that you are, they're not doing it the way that you are, and they're not you. So just remember that they are not you.
There's no question.
It took me a while to learn that.
Yes. And we all have our own personalities, our own approaches. As a lawyer and as a business coach, I'm let's get to the facts. This is the reality. This is what we have to deal with. I'm not the hand holder. And that works with some people. And in my law practice, it didn't work with other clients. I wasn't offended by that. I was like, I understand. You need somebody different. I'm not the person for you. And that's okay. That's okay. But again, we're not all cut from the same mold. And the more you can be yourself, I think, the happier you're going to be in your own practice, even though it means sometimes you turn clients away.
Agree.
That's okay. Never anything wrong with that. Yeah. Well, now, Elsa, I would be remiss if I did not ask you about the sign that is behind you. I love it. Be a voice, not an echo. tell me what that's about. I'm going to put your contact information up while you're talking about it. And
first of all, that's yours.
there you go. With me, that's my contact information. But there you go. I gotcha.
Full disclosure, I was in Home Goods one day and I saw the sign. I loved it. It spoke to me, and I said, "That's coming home with me." So, yay, Home Goods. But it spoke to me because, it goes back to what we were just talking about not just blending in, not being just another attorney. In my practice, and my tagline is empowering women through estate planning.
Mm-hmm.
In order to do that, I have to step outside my comfort zone. I need to challenge women to think beyond the confines that we are raised to consider when it comes to our lives and our futures. Like, what's the narrative that you want to write about your life? Not the one that's being written for you and that you're just playing a part in, as in you're in a Broadway play. What's the narrative that you're going to write in your story? Yeah. And estate planning, and here's how the empowerment comes in, is through the process, at least through the joy that I get in the clients that I serve, particularly the women, but I serve men too. Men, if you're listening, I serve all comers. But the transformation that I see in women is that, first of all, it's creating a safe space for them to articulate any fears, hopes, concerns, aspirations, things that, maybe they've thought about, but perhaps they said, well, that's kind of a lofty idea. Like, no, bring all those things. Let's put them all on the table. And I asked the question, why not? Why not you? Why not now? Why don't we try to find a way to manifest these dreams that you have? Were you thinking of, charitable giving back to the university, that you graduated from, or perhaps a sorority that has meant so much to you, or perhaps a women's organization that did a lot for you in terms of, growth and professional development. It's and once you challenge people to start looking and considering those questions, the aha moments start to come. Right? You've created the safe space. You're prompting them with the questions. And then my job as counsel is to say, all right, let's see how we can get you there through estate planning, the tools that we have. And it's in that process, right? Getting it, they become more confident. And one thing, I think I mentioned this to you during show prep, is that once you have an estate plan, like for me, I jokingly, but it was true. I said I felt like a grown-up, but I also felt more empowered. You walk taller when you know that you have done something proactively to protect your present as well as your future. Your whole countenance changes.
Yeah, exactly. You're exactly right. That is exactly what happens. So, wow, that's powerful. That's very powerful. So I would be remiss if I did not ask you this business related question. Okay. So you've been a solo law firm owner for a while now. What would you say is your biggest challenge? It's hard to pick just one. I know.
Yeah, it is. Biggest challenge, it's not so much anymore, but I'm constantly working on it, is not being afraid to dare yourself and to believe in more. And I was thinking about that question, go, well, could it be like employee stuff and, managing? Yeah. All that's true. But as the CEO of my business, as the visionary of my business, I constantly have to dream and be, and ask myself, what is next? What is the next chapter I know what brought me here, and I'm, thankfully I'm enjoying a level of success thanks to referrals and so forth from clients and other attorneys, which I'm very grateful for. But I have to think, what's next for the law offices of Elsa W. Smith? Bringing on other attorneys, absolutely. People who understand, not only attorneys, but other team members who understand the mission. Because I'm building a community. It's an ecosystem.
Exactly.
But everybody in there has to get it, in order. And it, you're bringing someone into your space, right? So
Yes.
they've got to be in tune with you and what you're trying to accomplish. I'm actually looking to, and I wrote an article about this for the MSBA journal. It's, changing the generational narrative. One family at a time. How can we do that? We're all looking for ways to, how are we going to make an impact? Well, I believe that part of my legacy is helping women, helping families one at a time change the generational narrative in their family. If they came from a family where no one's ever done any kind of estate planning and they are the first, what a ripple effect will that have on generations to come? Young girls who are looking at their moms going to meet with an attorney and creating an estate plan, normalizing that conversation of wills and so forth and charitable giving and all of that. Can you imagine the impact that can have on future? I mean, I get goosebumps just thinking about it, but that's really my mission. And that's what I'm trying to do.
So I have to make this comment because this is when I know that a lawyer has found her niche. It's when they get as excited talking about what they do as you are right now. And, that's when I know that somebody is in a practice that really does feed their soul. And I think for lawyers, it is a terrible grind if you are not in that kind of practice. So I applaud you because you are clearly very excited about what you do, and for good reason, because you're right. This is building, it's like building the platform that the future generations can build upon because they've seen mom do this, or they've seen mom and dad go do this. This is important. And hopefully mom and dad are going to talk to them about why they did it and why it's important and what building wealth really means. So yay for you. I think it's wonderful. I think it's really wonderful what you're doing. And I applaud you for it because you are excited about it. You're clearly very successful at it. And I can only imagine if I come back in a year and ask you to come on again, there's going to be all kinds of stuff that you've built over the next
God will,
year.
from your lips to God's ears. Yes.
But I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you, Elsa. So we put up your contact information. If anybody wants to get in touch with you about estate planning, or there may well be some lawyers out there that might have some questions for you. Would you be willing to take their questions?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Please contact me. The number and the contact information's on the screen. And also, by the way, I'm all over social media. So I'm on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube. I've got a vibrant YouTube channel at Elsa W. Smith Law, free educational content. Take advantage of it. I've also got free resources on my website. Take advantage, download those as well. And if we can be of assistance in Maryland or the District of Columbia in the area of estates and trust, please give us a call.
Wonderful. Well, Elsa, it's been a real pleasure having you on. And like I said, I'm going to put on my calendar to call you in a year and see if I can have you back and find out what's going on with Elsa Smith Law.
I'd love to.
Terrific. So listen, everybody, thank you for joining us. I know you've learned a tremendous amount. And let me tell you about next week. Next week, we're going to have my friend Becky Schmoke, who is not a lawyer, but who is a master storyteller. And she's going to be talking about storytelling for lawyers, which is an amazing talent that I think we all need to develop a little more. So join us next week, Tuesday at 2:00, or catch us on the on the replay. And I hope you have a great week.